What's up, y'all? Today we're back with a set of rental code recreations of top players' teams. Today I'll be showing off a really dominant team that VGC Twitter has been referring to as New Balance. Chi-Yu and Fluttermane provide immediate special attacking damage, while Gyarados, Ting-Lu, and Amoonguss provide them the support they need to sweep teams. Now these five have been around since the first American Regional, with Fiona Shimkiewicz getting top 4 with Baxcalibur as the last Pokemon, but it was really Wolf Glick who put the pieces together on Iron Hands being the most meta-positive way to complete that 6 for his top 4 finish at the Hartford Regionals. It's been scattered throughout Top Cut since, so I wanted to highlight the 2 most common variants you can expect to see at the upcoming North American Internationals to close out Regulation C. First up is Brian Hume's Milwaukee winning team. The Amoonguss, Gyarados, and Amoonguss on these teams all sort of blend together. They tend to be pretty similar, but I'll go over what you can expect as the standard on those 3. Gyarados typically has Taunt for opposing Amoonguss teams, Thunder Wave for speed control, and Waterfall for damage, as well as the potential to flinch any already paralyzed Pokemon, so they have a 40% chance not to move. Ting-Lu spreads damage with either super effective coverage moves or Ruination, whichever is stronger in that instance. And Amoonguss is just a general support nuisance with Spore, Rage Powder, and Pollen Puff, and sometimes Clear Smog being all uniquely pesky to deal with. It's really the offensive threats on these compositions that differentiate teams though. Brian went with a Choice Specs Chi-Yu, which wasn't too common at the time, and a speed boosting booster energy Fluttermane. Now Beads of Ruins offsets a bit of the loss in damage compared to a more offensive item on Fluttermane, but the speed boost lets you set up pretty consistent and unique endgames for yourself, where you can outspeed and KO any opposing Fluttermane with just a bit of chip damage. He also has a Swords Dance, Terrifier, Safety Goggles, Iron Hands, which is really dangerous against slower paced teams. Overall, I'd say this is the more offensive of the 2 teams as a whole, but now moving on to the second team I'll be featuring. This is piloted by Riley Factura, to top 4 at Fresno Regionals most recently. It's got a lot of the same things going on the defensive front, but Riley went for Leftovers on Ting-Lu, which freed him up to swap around items on his offensive core. The Nasty Plot Chi-Yu set was a little more typical of what we saw earlier this season, but the Ting-Lu was the star of the show to me during Riley's stream matches. It was really a nuisance for players to knock out with Protect and Leftovers healing, and honestly, most players aren't used to having to consider whether a Ting-Lu is going to Protect, because the most common sets have been Assault Vest and Choice Band, so having to make that decision of, okay, are they protecting this or next turn, was pretty consequential, because the difference, if you get that wrong enough times, it's just going to be consistently chipping you away with Ruination damage while you're not making much ground yourself. So really cool addition. Honestly, might become the standard going forward on this team. It just was really impressive on stream. These rentals take a bit of time to make, so I'd really appreciate it if you consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy the content, maybe dropping a like. And I hope you all enjoy playing with these rentals in-game. And of course, the PokePaste are in the description for any Showdown purists or anyone just looking to check out the EV spreads. That being said, let's get into the battles. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with Brian Hume's championship-winning team, just because I think it's a little more offensive and might be geared a little better to the best-of-1 format. Alright, we found our first opponent of the day. It's going to be against Lynn, rank 7. And they have a interesting team. Okay, so they have Annihilate, Arcanine, Fluttermane, Iron Bundle, Amoonguss, and Murkrow. It'd be interesting if they had beat up on one of these Pokemon. They could actually beat up Annihilate and a Justified Arcanine. I wonder if that's what this is. Maybe Murkrow gets beat up. Amoonguss also gets Bullet Seed. That could be a self-proc situation. But I think Gyarados is a pretty bad lead here into the Annihilate Defiant. Even though it can do pretty well into Amoonguss, it's also weak to Iron Bundle, so that seems bad. Let's go with Amoonguss on lead. They can't really contest that super well. I feel like Iron Hands does a pretty solid job against their team as long as they're not Clear Spog Amoonguss, but I don't really want to lead that. You know what? They can't really do a lot about me just Rage Powder Choice Spexing with the Chi-Yu, so I'm going to try that. Use Booster Energy Fluttermane, which can even do well in Tailwind, and then... I think the Iron Hands is probably going to be most beneficial here. It might be my most likely Terra target, just because if their choice specs Fluttermane and they lock into a Fairy move, that's really beneficial for me. But I got to be a bit careful. This team really benefits from switching the team I'm using. However, I kind of brought my more offensive back too. And I really only have Amoonguss to lean on defensively, so I've got to be a little bit wary of how the risks I'm taking with my offense, so that I don't just get overwhelmed by a couple bad turns. Okay. Annihilate Amoonguss, that's pretty nice. I just don't want it to be Bullet Seed. I feel like it is. Okay, this is a little dicey for me. I think I live a beat up, and I don't really want to take a Spore here. And I also feel like it's like a Heat Wave, if they do not terrestrialize their Annihilate and their Amoonguss, would be such a good play here. Knock out the Amoonguss, probably do 60 to Annihilate in exchange for 1 tick of Rage Fist. But I don't think that's what I want to go for here, just because I feel like I'm pretty overly cautious in best of 1 ladder. That might be something I have to work on. But okay, we see a switch in Annihilate. So no Bullet Seed. Okay. Okay. Yeah, if that's Safety Goggles, that's pretty... It's not horrible, but it's not great for me. Yeah. So I think we're trading Safety Goggle Spores here, unfortunately. So on one hand, if they Flare Blitz me, I probably live and they take a ton of damage on their Iron, on their guy. But on the other hand, let's just detect this turn. I don't want to have to burn my Terra when I don't have to. Like, I could get a free Swords Dance up, but I feel like it's pretty early in the battle to just tip that when I have a free detect. And this is something I saw Brian doing pretty consistently on stream, was something he did really well was not just burn the Terra type. Okay. Hopefully they don't Spore my Amoonguss. That would be a great play. But okay. Fair enough. Kind of a weird turn from them, honestly. At this point, I'm kind of getting a little frustrated. And I think I'm just going to go for a Heat Wave and... Do I need my Terra type for anything else? Amoonguss is water. Let's look at who they could have in the back. Yeah, I think I'm going to go for it. Because if I had to guess, I'd expect it to be Iron Bundle in the back, maybe. This play, I expect it to be maybe Fluttermane, but also Iron Bundle. I can Rage Powder away stuff, and I really just want to get the Swords Dance up here. A Heat Wave, I should knock out the Amoonguss. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Now, if they have something weird like Close Combat, this is obviously a wasted Terra one, and yeah, okay. There was the Will-O-Wisp, which I expected last turn, but yeah, that's a really big knockout. Now we can start just stocking up on damage. And we haven't hit the Annihilate yet at all, notably. So I think I'm going to go for another Swords Dance, and you know what, no. That'd be greedy, but I think in the short term, knocking out Arcanine is probably more beneficial for me. Like, who could they have in the back? Swords Dance is a little greedy for me. I just don't want to hit the Annihilate. So what I'm going to do is go for another Swords Dance. I think maybe a more I'm not totally sure about this turn, because I could have gone for a knockout on the Arcanine, but if they protect, I'm in a bit of trouble. Yeah. Okay, this is pretty good. Rocky Helmet proving its worth here. Because if they Flare Blitz, I think they'll knock themselves out on the Annihilate, or on the Arcanine. So they have one bulk up. Okay. So I think a Flare Blitz is going to come out into this slot. But I don't really want to lose out on my Amoonguss. I just don't want them to Drain Punch my Amoonguss, really. That could be a bit detrimental. Actually, I think the damage, if I get any into the Annihilate, is probably worth it. So I'm going to Spore that slot and Wild Charge the Arcanine, just in case they Protect Switch. Another Bulk Up. So now we're going to see just how offensive this Arcanine is. I think if they Flare Blitz, they'll knock themselves out, and the Wild Charge will... Oh, that's so good. Yeah, I thought I was probably going to be bulky enough to live this. Yeah, and they knock themselves out, and I'm going to do some big damage to the Annihilate with a plus... Yeah, that was +3 Wild Charge to their +2 on bulk ups. And now I get a Spore off. So Clear Smog was probably better here in the case that they're Lumberry. But they're leftovers. So they haven't burned their Terastallization just yet, which is for sure relevant, but I think with Booster Energy Flutter Chi-Yu, they're going to have a hard time winning this, especially given that they're not Focus Sash. At any point, I can kind of just double that guy. So what I'm going to do here is Rage Powder and... Actually, a Terra Grass could be pretty bad for me. Terra Grass would be really bad. How can I cover that? Because Rage Powder covers everything but them being Terra Grass. I guess if they do that, they don't really gain that much. Okay, no Terra Grass. So my thought process was if they go for the Terra Grass on the Iron Bundle, best case for them, they hit the Hydro Pump into the Iron Hands, which knocks me out, and then I still have Amoonguss on the field. And Booster Energy Fluttermane, who can just come in and Moonblast the Annihilate, which has no opportunity to Terastallize to a resisting type like a Terra Fire there. Although I guess Shadow Ball would be safer there. Yeah, so I would just Shadow Ball the Annihilate and cover. If they first turn Wake, there could be some issues if they eventually freeze my Fluttermane. But I wasn't really worried about that very much. Now we bring in Fluttermane, and we just keep using our single target 100% accurate attacks on the Iron Bundle and close this out. Alright. And they canceled the battle. So yeah, good game to them. I think they probably needed to commit a defensive switch or just something on the Amoonguss slot to keep it alive, because it seemed like it was really, it could have been pretty impactful for them to like Terra Water and then Spore my Chi-Yu. But just leaving the Amoonguss to get knocked out was pretty risky of them. But maybe because of my turn 1 switch, they thought, okay, obviously this Chi-Yu just doesn't have the gas to knock me out. It might just be a bulky Flamethrower set. But yeah, no. Unfortunately for them, I was the Swords Dance. So climb a bit of points. We're going to get one more battle with this team. I think we showed off the power of the Choice Specs Chi-Yu for sure. Getting that unexpected knockout. I mean, marginally unexpected knockout on the Amoonguss, and the Swords Dance Iron Hands, just switching it on a Spore. And just really causing problems, just exerting so much offensive pressure while also being extremely difficult to knock out. Oh, and we got a Palance Core. This is actually my favorite version, one that I got 9th place at Portland with, so I'm pretty familiar with it. I'm going to assume it's the Assault Vest, Ting-Lu, and the Clear Amulet Baxcalibur. But I think the Clear Amulet Bax is definitely going to be their main Pokemon, I'd expect. Howl Arcanine is usually on this team too, so I kind of want to keep that from getting out of hand. I like Chi-Yu here. Okay, so I was thinking about an Iron Hands game plan, and I think I still can and will go for that. No, I'm not. I'm going to go for this. So this is a little questionable. I'd say Gyarados covers a majority of their team very, very well with Amoonguss, but it's the Baxcalibur that can be pretty challenging to deal with. I might have to commit my Terra... I think this Gyarados is Terra Steel. I'm not sure if it's Terra Fairy or Terra Steel, but I might commit to that to just deal with the Baxcalibur for a turn, or maybe I'll go for the Terra Water on Amoonguss. Okay, Palafin Fluttermane wasn't quite what I was expecting, but fair enough. So I think I'm going to take this opportunity to... It's a bit passive, but I don't really... See, the only issue is they could double up into my Chi-Yu, which would be a big, big problem, because it's my main defense on this team so far. So what I'm going to do is... The question is if they have Thunderbolt. That could be really, really, really impactful on this turn. So I think I'd rather just switch into my Amoonguss on this slot and protect. Play it a bit passive. We see the Chi-Yu switch out. Just making a note of that because switch order is determined by the speed stat of each Pokemon. So I was just checking, okay, if my Chi-Yu switched before the Palafin, then later in the game it can't wave crash me before I can Dark Pulse, which could have been relevant in case I wanted to Terra Fire. If I wanted to go for a Terra Water option later. But looks like they're going for a Fairy move. They go for the Terra Fairy on Fluttermane. And they went for the classic one, El Clasico. We get a bit of Rocky Helmet Ship, and Fluttermane locks in to Dazzling Gleam. Does a lot of damage still. That might be choice specs. I guess the question is this Taunt Palafin, which kind of got some usage. What's their most likely switch here? I think probably into Arcanine, maybe? I'm going to go for a Thunder Wave here and a... Yeah, I'm going to go for a Thunder Wave and a Pollen Puff, I think. Just in case they're taunt. Yeah, they switched that out. That's probably into Arcanine, if I had to guess. Okay, yeah, so it probably would have been a Spore into that slot regardless, but we see all four of their Pokemon this turn. They have Amoonguss in the back, which is good to note. It's Ting-Lu, so they... In some sense, they got me, but in another sense, they really didn't. There's not really much damage on the field being threatened. I get a free Spore into that slot. I get a Taunt into Amoonguss, so this is kind of a bing, bang, boom turn for me. The Ting-Lu on these teams should usually be carrying Stone Edge, but sometimes they carry Fisher. Shout out Carrie Fisher. Rip Princess Leia. But yeah, if they go for Fisher here, all I could try to do to circumvent that would be go for a waterfall flinch, but that's just so inconsistent. Okay. Yep. So they had a 30% chance for that turn to go really, really right for them. But I do need to start exerting immediate pressure onto this Ting-Lu, in my opinion. I'm going to keep that on the field, and I'm going to start going for... I'm going to cover the Among Us switching with a Spore, just because like they do offer some damage with Pollen Puff on offensively, but most likely they're just going to be Pollen Puffing their Ting-Lu or something like that. And if they do switch, it's a massive win for us. Okay, no switch. But now we can kind of just start going for Rage Powder. Just Rage Powdering, basically. Yeah, there's the Pollen Puff, so... Good defensive turn from them, but now we get to go for a really safe Heat Wave, and I could get greedy and try and cover a switch again, but I really don't want them to wake up on their Ting-Lu and go for a double power stomping tantrum. Because they've been sleeping for one turn, and even if, because they missed the Fisher the last turn, their stomping tantrum damage is doubled. I doubt that's enough to knock out Among Us, which is good. I guess an interesting play could have been to switch in Gyarados here, but I'm not sure that Chi-Yu would have lived. So we've hit all our Heat Waves today. Oh, even through Vessel of Ruin, we knock out their Among Us. That's pretty huge. Okay, they wake up, and it's Stomping Tantrum. And our Among Us just lives. They take a tick of Rocky Helmet, and now they're going to get their... So now they're going to get their Flutter Mane in, which is not ideal. I think if I can chip their Flutter Mane with Heat Wave, I like my endgame with Among Us plus Booster Energy Flutter Mane, so that's what I'm going to go for. Unfortunately, this is kind of relying on me hitting this Heat Wave, but, just got to be hopeful. Okay, they go for the Dazzling Gleam. It's going to do a lot of damage to all my Pokemon. Oh, it doesn't 2-hit KO Gyarados. Heat Wave goes off, hits both. Ting-Lu's now in Waterfall range. I think we critical hit their Flutter Mane. And we haven't burned our Terra yet. And their next... So now my Beads of Ruin have left the field. So... If they get crafty with their Terra here, this could be a bit challenging to play safely. I'm pretty sure I can just safely Spore that slot. So I think we'll go for that. I'm going to try and Spore their Flutter Mane and go for a Waterfall into that slot, I think. No, it should have been Flutter Mane this turn. Because now Palafin's a bit problematic for me. Yeah, this is getting dicier than it should have been if I had just brought in... Okay, they shouldn't knock out because they should be doing less damage this turn, actually. Yeah, almost nothing. We proc our Citrus Berry, and there's no secondary fields field effects going on, so Waterfall should just clean up the Ting-Lu. Yeah. And Fluttermane, unless it's a Lumberry, which honestly it could be. The damage with the Dazzling Gleam has been pretty middling so far. Also, just to point out, like, that Ting-Lu was taking so much from the heat waves, it was kind of absurd. I wonder if that was a Lumberry Ting-Lu, or not an AV, or I'm just vastly underestimating the power of this GU. Because it knocked out the Amoonguss through, I guess it was at neutral because Beads of Ruin and Vessel of Ruin cancel each other out. But, yeah. So what I'm going to do now is... Oh, I definitely don't Spore. That's definitely not my play. We're going to switch. We're going to go for Rage Powder. If they attack, and they're not Goggles or Terra Grass, which, possible, they're going to be taking a ton of damage. I mean, not quite a ton, but you get what I mean. They'll take a Rocky Helmet chip and a Wave Crash, a couple HP points from Wave Crash if they go for that. No Jet Punch, so we will see what's coming up. Wave Crash, that's best case. Yep. So they get a little Rocky Helmet chip and like what? 17-ish HP. And now they're intimidated. So this is that endgame I was kind of talking about when I was introing the team, is I've chipped the Fluttermane, I have some chip damage on the Palafin. So now I think Waterfall's probably... I've already burned a turn of them waking up. Huh. I think my best play is probably Terra Dazzling Gleam here, and then cover it not knocking out the best I can. But yeah, this is kind of coming down to... Yeah, Moonblast could have been better here. I'm just not really sure if I want to risk them waking up and going for a Protect. Because this is better into that, marginally. Waterfall into Palafin would be better if they wake up Protect, but... Okay, they go for Jet Punch. Doesn't knock me out. We get the Gleam off. If this knocks out Fluttermane, it's Curtains. It doesn't. They wake up. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. Looks like they're going to inch it out off of a first turn wake, unfortunately. It probably wouldn't have gotten to that point if I'd brought in Fluttermane instead of Amoonguss. It was just taking a bit too much damage, so... that's frustrating. Okay. I could have gone for the Moonblast, though. I think I'd probably lose unless I get a ton of Paraflinches onto their Palafin. Jet Punch. Does Waterfall knock them out from here? I'd guess not. But if they go for a Wave Crash... I'm going to go for Waterfall. That's just not going to knock out. I'm going to try Thunder Wave. I think it's a little higher odds for me. Oh, they're faster. Okay, yeah. A really close match. Really close one. Yeah, I think I kind of ID'd it when it was happening, but bringing in the Amoonguss on that turn was like a pretty big loss of tempo for me. I most likely could have taken a knockout instead of taking a lot of damage on my Amoonguss, and that damage on the Amoonguss ended up feeling pretty important. If I had Amoonguss around, I could have gone for the Moonblast instead of the Dazzling Gleam, so... I think I had the tools to win that match for sure. It's a pretty standard match, but They also brought some Pokemon I wasn't quite expecting. I feel like I overcovered for the Baxcalibur and got punished a bit for it. But yeah, that was the second game of this team. I'm going to bring it to the second version of the team I was highlighting, the a little bit more defensive one, largely with the Assault Vest on the Iron Hands, the leftovers on the Ting-Lu, and the safety goggles on the Chi-Yu. I think this team is probably a bit more my speed. I'm a big fan of the Assault Vest Iron Hands, but also kind of interesting to note last match, they didn't really bring much for the safety goggles Iron Hands. If you think about it, they brought, Amoonguss, Fluttermane, Ting-Lu, and the Palafin. So if I had just protected my Amoonguss well and gotten a Swords Dance up, there wouldn't have been a lot they could have done about me just Terra-Firing and Drain Punching and Wall Charging through their team. So that's something worth bearing in mind, is if the Baxcalibur doesn't really get cooking behind Howl Arcanine, Iron Hands really does have the chance to just sweep super hard. And we got our next opponent. Let's try and climb out of this rank 7. It's Great Baltiers proving a bit harder than expected, but we have an interesting team with the Oranguru, Garchomp, Iron Moth, Rotom W, Amoonguss, and Annihilate. So this could be another Bullet Seed Annihilate combination, or it could be Choice Scarf Final Gambit. The Oranguru could be Inner Focus, or it could be Telepathy next to the Garchomp. I'm kind of leaning the latter, but no, we're not Booster Energy Flutter. That's unfortunate. Okay, but I do think Fluttermane's my best lead here by far. Amoonguss is a bit weak into their Iron Moth, so we'll steer clear of that. I like Iron Hands a fair bit. Ting-Lu is also pretty strong. People usually lead with Iron Moth, so I want to cover that aggressively. I think with Ting-Lu, Amoonguss is generally pretty strong into most of their Pokemon outside of the Iron Moth, and we'll go with Chi-Yu. I went with the Iron Hands over the Chi-Yu just because I was a bit worried about their Garchomp running me over. I didn't bring Intimidate, so I think I know that sounds odd, but I think my most likely Terra this match is going to be the Terra Grass Assault Vest Iron Hands. I think that does pretty well against everything on their team except for the Iron Moth, so that's kind of what I was locking in instead of going for the Safety Goggles redirection, or Safety Goggles to circumvent Amoonguss. I'm probably just going to Terra Grass my Iron Hands anyways and get more value. Speak of the Devil, they lead that, unfortunately. Okay. So, Fluttermane definitely wants out here. I don't think I mind going for a Ruination into Rotom. So just looking at their Pokemon and mine, Amoonguss is going to be challenging to knock out, for sure. But I think I can kind of just put asleep their Rotom. I don't really want them to be nasty plot Safety Goggles, so I'm going after the Rotom here. Amoonguss is going to be pesky for sure, but okay, they go for Hydro Pump. It does less than half, and I'm not even Assault Vest. And we threaten Redirection next turn. Yep, there's the Spore. So they actually read that my Fluttermane was switching out, which is a solid play. I mean, maybe not a read, but they were confident enough in their position that they didn't switch, so that was a good decision on their part. Let's see, they could have Iron Moth here. think even if they do, I'm okay with that. I think I'm going to go for Spore, and it doesn't matter what I go with for Ting-Lu. They go for Rage Powder, which to me doesn't make any sense. Okay, Hydro Pump doesn't knock out Ting-Lu. We burn our first turn of sleep, and we get a Spore off onto the Rotom. So feeling pretty happy about that. Yeah, no Lumberry safety goggles on that Rotom, so we are playing a bit of chicken on which of our two is faster here. But I do like Pollen Puff Ruination into their Amoonguss a lot. Rotom is now chipped into a Dazzling Gleam range if I Terrestrialize that, or just a single target attack. So I'm kind of just going to leave that alone and try to not activate any like Citrus Berry or anything like that and waste a turn. Ooh, we do wake up. I went for Ruination instead of Stomping Tantrum, which I guess was okay. Yikes! There's a fruit fly on my everywhere. Okay, so really fortunate that I woke up there, like really, really fortunate. Yikes! Okay, they're leftovers Amoonguss. That's cool. That's a pretty cool tech from them. We are kind of still at a stalemate. I think it's really unlikely they go for a Spore into my Amoonguss, given that Spore into Ting-Lu is just so positive. They can also go for a Hydro Pump here. So I think Protect onto Ting-Lu. It's drawing a lot of attention right now. They're getting annoyed by it, for sure. And so I think this gives an opportunity to get my Iron Hands free without getting Spored. And then I can kind of just like go for Fake Out Terra next turn in case they Will-O-Wisp me. Okay. So they finally get a Pollen Puff off, which, fair enough. I wasn't threatening that much damage on them. So we're kind of stalemated at this point, but I finally got my Iron Hands in, and I haven't really lost much positional advantage at all. Like, I think I'm just going to Terra Grass, switch to... you know what? I'm actually getting steadily weaker to Iron Moth in the back. Very, very, very weak to Iron Moth at this point. Okay. I think I'm just going to have to hope that they don't have Will-O-Wisp on Rotom. Or that they miss. Yeah, that was kind of short-sighted in my game planning, is that... Yeah, I've been driving towards this Iron Hands Grass Terra, but unfortunately in doing that... Okay, so... Yeah, no worries about Will-O-Wisp. Alright, that's not... Of the... That's so weird. That's so weird. Okay. Fortunately, I can just steadily heal myself, I think. Right. Oh wait, I don't even have to Terra anymore. This is so fire. Yeah, that's great. Okay. No, let's not run. I'm going to Drain Punch and... I think Spore the Amoonguss slot? Like, what's it doing at this point? No, I don't have to do that at all. I'm just going to double the Rotom with Spore Drain Punch. Okay, that's fair. I guess they're going to be doing a little bit of chip damage, double protect, sure. They're chipping away at me for sure, but to what end? Because, yeah, like, who cares, you know? They can't really do any damage to me. And I'm the one threatening a Spore and they're not, so... Seems like an overall pretty solid trade for me. They could just double that again. I'm sure they could Rage Powder, but best case, they get their Rotom sleeping, and I Pollen Puff myself next turn, so... Because I feel like it would let... Oh, they timed out for sure. Protect on Amoonguss, Thunder Wave on Rotom. Okay, that changes a little bit, yeah, for sure. Drain Punch does a little less than half to Rotom, so a Wild Charge later in the game will do 50 for sure. We get a Spore off. Now I think they're... Now I think it's time to maybe get aggressive and Heavy Slam. It's not really aggressive. Yeah, let's get aggressive. Kind of tired of this stalemate. They're probably just going to Pollen Puff their Rotom, but on the off chance that they don't, like if they go for a Rage Powder or something, I want my Flutter Mane on the field, yeah. So this is where having a pocket Heavy Slam is going to be really helpful for us, because I think this is going to put them in range of a Choice Specs. I doubt Amoonguss is in range of the Choice Specs move, but Rotom surely is. So yeah, their decision not to Pollen Puff there was smart in that I couldn't get any damage back from Drain Punch, but not super wise in other respects. So I think Dazzling Gleam will knock them out, but I'm not sure. They don't look too bulky, so I'm going to go for a Drain Punch and a Dazzling Gleam and hope that gets it. I keep forgetting they're leftovers, Amoonguss, and they benefit a lot from just doubling or alternating protects, and they just tried to go for a protect last turn, so I think it wouldn't be unreasonable for them to go for that again, another protect, so Drain Punch into Rotom just to cover that would have been pretty good. And it's a little dicey in that now again, like I've kind of been alluding to the whole game, Iron Moth just comes in, but that's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah, we take the knockout onto Rotom. And we'll see who they brought in the back. Ooh, something I just remembered. The Garchomp in the back could be a little spooky for our Iron Hands now that I took away our opportunity to tear grass. This is kind of the detriment of not having a team sheet in front of you. You can check the team preview pretty regularly, but it's a lot easier to keep track of what end games your opponent might be driving to, whether it be Iron Moth or Garchomp, if you have the 6 in front of you. Iron Moth is sociable. Dang it. Okay. I think I'm going to go into... I don't love going into Ting-Lu here, but I do think we get a knockout with Dazzling Gleam. Heavy Slam. So I'm going to go for that. They go for another Protect on Amoonguss. We move before the Iron Moth. I think I have this as a timid Flutter Mane. So that was all okay. Crit and Sludge Wave. Okay. Don't poison me. This Heavy Slam damage could be good, for sure. Oh wow, that's a lot of damage. If I had Wild Charged, I would have knocked out. But I was expecting Amoonguss just to tank that. But now late game Shadow Ball should be good for me. Annihilate, alright. So now I really have to switch out my guy here. Yikes, okay. I think I'm going to preserve this and just go for this. No, oh my god. That was such a bad blow. I don't know why I went Amoonguss. I wanted Ting-Lu in there. Okay. Alright. Guess that works. But they have now hit themselves. They haven't gone for the Terra. They only have one tick of that, and Fluttermane outspeeds everything. Not out of the woods yet by a long shot, but I want to say Shadow Ball should knock out. It's pretty bulky, but they tend not to be, like it's bulky especially, but they tend not to be too offensive. Yeah, it's going to be tight. Okay, that's pretty bad. That's really bad. Okay. Yep, so the para comes through. Kind of a niche option on Rotom, but it comes back to bite us here. Ice Punch, all is forgiven. We're chilling. We get the Citrus back. So what is that, Assault Vest on Annihilate? That's interesting. Maybe they were... No, they definitely weren't choice specs. But yeah, I think we, again... The temptation is strong to just go for Rage Powder Shadow Ball, but I think that's actually not my best play. I think my best play is to preserve my Fluttermane. I'm always going to be moving before the Annihilate unless there's something weird like Quick Claw. They're most likely Assault Vest, so instead of... I'm trying to maximize the turns that they have to get right, where they have to for sure get a couple turns into Amoonguss hitting Ice Punches. Yeah, so I was just trying to maximize my chances of eventually getting a Spore off. Because at this point now I can pretty much just go for Stomping Tantrum and Pollen Puff into myself. Ruination would do more here, but again, we're not driving. We're just trying to get the Fluttermane to do the hit. We have 2 guaranteed turns where the Annihilate... Okay. We have a couple turns where the Annihilate is kind of just stuck here. And eventually Fluttermane comes back in. Terra Fighting. Yeah, this locks for us actually, because we can go for Moonblast. I wonder what they were covering for there. Maybe... What abilities? It gets... No, it gets Vital Spirit, Defiant, and one other. Maybe Early Bird? I don't remember. If it was Early Bird, that was like an interesting play, but not a great one. I did no damage to the Annihilate. What the heck? Okay. Regardless, we're just going to keep hitting Stomping Tantrum and now hitting Rage Powders. Just, you know, biding our time. There's no need to rush things and switch in Fluttermane hastily in exchange for getting knocked out as we get paralyzed going for Rage Powder. We don't have to do that. The onus is on them to just take this knockout. And yeah, again, Rage Powder. I think it's probably more beneficial at this point to start going for... Under the thinking that Moonblast from Choice Specs, Fluttermane will always knock out the Annihilate, who's 2 times weak to it. This is our best play. Just keep on hitting those stomps. We finally given enough Rage Fist boost that Amoonguss gets knocked out by Rage Powder, and now Fluttermane comes in to deal the finishing blow. It was just as an aside. This Ting-Lu took, what, 2 Hydro Pumps and a Pollen Puff, is now back at full HP. Partially because of Pollen Puff, but a lot of that is leftover healing. That's really, really crazy. 3 minutes left until battle ends. Wow, yeah, that took forever. Whoopsie. Sorry about that. Gonna be a bit of a longer set of matches today. But I think, yeah, the strengths of this team were really shown off. We have the leftovers Ting-Lu, the Assault Vest, Iron Hands just kind of sitting on the field, slowly chipping away through the opponent. And yeah, we're going to get one more with this match just because that was such a long and kind of drawn out one. But yeah, Garchomp. I think if they had Garchomp, we'd probably lose. Just because I was a bit haphazard with my Terra there. But it all worked out. But I think it's good, even while you're playing, to take sort of mental notes on what you could be doing better like that, just to make sure that in future matches you're not making similar mistakes. Alright, now we're playing Samuel at rank 7. Hopefully this gets us out of rank 7. We've been stuck here all day, and we are playing against a Justin Tang recreation team, looks like. So this is kind of the first wave of the meta, and this is really the team we're using the second, and maybe not final, but pretty close to it. And something the early meta didn't really account for too well was Iron Hands, in my opinion. It's going to be really good into Chien Pao. The Flutter Mane doesn't do that well into it. Palafin weak to it. Ting-Lu weak to it, and with Terra Grass and Mungus also weak to it, so that's definitely coming for us. I like leading a Mungus generally just because it covers a lot of what they like to go for. I'm going to have Iron Hands in the back. This is just a pretty offensive lead for us, so maybe we actually go for Ting. Yeah, let's try and show off the Chi-Yu, which we've been benching so far. I think Flutter Mane might... Well, how fast is our Flutter Mane? I don't think it's timid 252. So we're wasting a lot of speed there. I think our Ting-Lu's not too strong against them. So I'm going to be going for the Safety Goggles Chi-Yu this game just because I'd expect them to have a pretty Amoonguss-centric game plan or bring a lot of physical attackers. So we shouldn't be boosting too much of their special attacks with our Beads of Ruin, and if they bring Amoonguss and they lead poorly, we're going to be getting potentially a free Nasty Plot off as they waste a Spore into Safety Goggles in Best of 1 closed team sheet. Sort of the benefit of that set in this case. We saw the benefit of just getting unexpected KOs with Choice Specs last time. But yeah, Dragapult Palafin is here. Oops. So that's not what I meant to lead. Oh, actually, this isn't a recreation of Tang's team. Tang did not have Ting-Lu. He had Arcanine. So, yeah, we're just going to take full advantage of that and go for a Spore. And probably Fake Out into Palafin. Yeah, we're just going to Spore the Dragapult for sure, right? Nope, we don't run a run. Spore Dragapult, and I think Drain Punch the Palafin is a bit safer. They're not threatening too much damage, and in the off chance that they do something unexpected and really potentially knock me out or get me low, I want to get a bit more damage off. And that is Terra Steel. I guess they're trying to knock out the Amoonguss? No. So that resists Heavy Slam. Their Life Orb. And they Flip Turn. Okay, so definitely some big deviations from Tang's 6 and their sets individually. But now we're getting a Drain Punch off into Ting-Lu and a Spore into Dragapult. And this is kind of the thing about this team is it's really defensive, yeah, but it also, like, if you're getting turns wrong against it, I'm really doing a lot of damage and you're not really doing meaningful damage to me back. Like, I'm a regenerator, switch away from being back at full with Amoonguss. I'm most likely able to just knock out the Ting-Lu here. Let's double check on that. Check our EV spread. I don't think I have a lot of speed. 73, yeah, not too much, but There is some concern about Fisher here. So with that in mind, I'm going to go for Rage Powder Drain Punch. This covers for me being slower than Ting-Lu, and it just like fishing away my Iron Hands win condition, which just absolutely destroys them. Yeah. Oh wow, we Omega low rolled their Ting-Lu, I think. Huh. That's not ideal. They go for Stomp. Does a lot of damage, and unfortunately we're not the Rocky Helmet set that Brian Hume was. Okay. But I think regardless, we're still kind of free to go for a Spore Drain Punch, covering the Wake Up on Dragapult. Among Us is getting pretty low, but I have a very, very free switch. Dragon Darts. Yep. Yeah, I have a very, very free switch into Gyarados on, for example, Palafin. And if they switch in Fluttermane, let's see. We'll wait and see who they have, but I'm really thinking, yeah. So we predicted the Wake there, and Dragapult is now a sitting duck for Drain Punch. We won't even have to Pollen Puff our Iron Hands back to full. Palafin comes in, and I think this is just a free Rage Powder. I don't have to risk much here. They switch out Dragapult, so I don't have to risk a lot. I don't have to go for my Terra Grass in the face of Palafin and switch in my Gyarados to cover for a Wave Crash crit, which would probably be my play otherwise. Just because, yeah, Qianpao's in the back, so I don't want to leave myself susceptible to Ice Spinner later on. But now we know with certainty Dragapult has no opportunity to protect in front of... Dragapult can't protect because it's on its first turn of sleep. Qianpao is just a hair above full, and we can intimidate the two Pokemon on the field. So I'm feeling very good about this position offensively. And yeah, now we're kind of just looking for ways to close this game safely. And I'm not sure Wild Charge knocks out Palafin. I'm going to go for Wild Charge. I think Amoonguss... Like, at this point in the battle, I'm looking for ways to 100% beyond a doubt win this game, whether they crit, whether they get double protects for the most part. And that's kind of hard to do, not knowing their entire sets and just generally IDing. It's hard to ID those win conditions when you don't know. Oh, yeah, okay. So that was something that slipped my mind. Is the Ruin abilities actually work on, they can benefit you too. So usually I'm pretty good about that, but yeah, Wild Charge, while it might have been suspect whether it knocked out some Palafin, definitely gets that one just based off the Sword of Ruin boost. So now we have a pretty free Waterfall into the Qianpao and yeah, Drain Punch. So if they don't attack my Iron Hands and knock it out, they lose to Drain Punch, and if they do, like say if they crit that Sacred Sword, then they lose their Qianpao, and then I can kind of just close it out with my Chi-Yu in the back. So we're actually going to be able to win this fourth and final match without Terra-ing our Pokemon, but yeah, I think Terra Grass would have been a pretty solid Terra if they had Fluttermane instead of Qianpao, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with how I kept that in reserve, just because if it was Fluttermane, like I could go for a Terra Grass and then completely wall Palafin and heavy slam the Fluttermane for easy knockouts. So yeah, pretty dominant game. You kind of see why, especially without Arcanine on this on that composition, Iron Hands has just really taken over the meta. over something like Palafin. Really, it really did nothing in that game. So, oops, no, I don't want to do that. Let's just look at the rank. We're rank 8. Get our points, and we're going to duck out, actually, of the battle. So, yeah. I hope you enjoyed the battles today. They went a little long just because of the slower positional nature of the team, but if you enjoyed the battles, please consider subscribing. I'm trying to do these pretty consistently just to have rental codes and PokePace out for as many people as possible, even if you're not experienced in building teams and fleshing out open team sheets from big finishers at tournaments, just having those available for people to practice with and get familiar in case you want to use something like that for North American internationals. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video today, and peace out.